All right, Colleen, thanks so much. Let's take a legal deep dive into these school threats. Joining me now is criminal defense attorney Hector Diaz of Diaz Law. You just heard Colleen. Let's talk about what kind of charges and also the punishment for students if they do make these school threats.
Well, we just saw that, this juvenile, and again, he's very fortunate. We're talking about juvenile-related charges. They're Class 3 felonies under Arizona law. Essentially, the allegation is making a threat using a deadly weapon to, essentially to engage in some intimidation or coercion against a mass population. I mean, this is really serious stuff. When you have terrorist threats alone are very serious, but when you're adding that, the punishment here could be probation if he's lucky. There could be detention. Again, I'm certain, given the volume of threats here, the county attorney who's in charge here of prosecuting is looking to see whether or not he's of appropriate age to maybe even charge as an adult. So, yeah,
could there even be jail time?
Absolutely, there could be detention. If he's a juvenile,
Okay.
There could be detention. Again, the juvenile system is a little different, set up to rehabilitate rather than punish.
Right.
It's going to depend on his criminal history, but I mean, this is just incredible.
Does it make a difference whether these threats are on social media versus a verbal threat?
They could. The social media aspect is, of course, it goes out to a lot of people. And so that's something that would factor in terms of maybe punishment, factor in terms of charges. There's such a thing as electronic harassment. But really, it's more in terms of just again, making it maybe more akin to terrorist threats rather than just simply a simple threat that a person might make when they're angry that could be couched as an assault or threats of intimidating. But here, I mean, what we're talking about, the volume and the nature of this and, a mass shooting, this is a whole nother level.
Okay, speaking of social media, you just heard Phoenix police saying that do not repost or share these threats on social media because it complicates the criminal investigation. How so?
I heard what the officer said. I agree with it. They want to investigate. They want to get to the heart of the allegation. Who did this? Every time it gets reposted on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, whatever platform, it makes it harder for Phoenix police and other law enforcement agencies to go and get to the heart and talk to people about, how did this originate? Because other people are going to comment and repost it or retweet it or whatever it is, and it just becomes difficult. The other is that you may be engaging in kind of the reharm here of pushing that out again.
Right.
Parent might see it, might say, hey, I'm not going to have my kids go to school today.
Yeah.
There might be...
You saw 6,000 kids didn't show up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I agree. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree that this is something that if you see something like this and it comes across, you're better off alerting the authorities.
So what if, though, if it was a hoax, if someone was just kidding, but they put it out there? Is it just as serious as making a real threat?
Absolutely. In fact, the statute that we're talking about here, the terrorist threat statute, it actually considers that kind of where the person says, I didn't mean it. I was, in fact, I don't even own a gun.
Right.
I would have never done it. The law doesn't care.
Doesn't matter.
You're going to be punished.
You made it. Okay. So we've seen in the past how parents are being held accountable. Case in point here, the Michigan mass shooting, school shooting that happened back in 2021, 3 years ago. The shooter's parents, James and Jennifer Crumbly, they were the first parents to ever be charged, then convicted of involuntary manslaughter, and then sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison. Should parents be held accountable if their child makes a school threat?
I'm going to give you a very lawyerly response here. It depends. It really depends case by case. I think, those situations that you just talked about, the prosecutors looked and saw really exceedingly bad facts that supported that these parents knew or should have known that their child posed a threat, and then they contributed to that threat in some cases by arming them, giving them, weapons, and having reason to know that they could use those weapons to harm others. So case by case, I will tell you, though, it is an emerging legal trend. I know that prosecutors are considering this, and when they're looking at offenses committed by juveniles in terms of what did the parents know, what did the parents do, and so it is a factor, and it's something that we're going to be talking about more.
Lately we've seen so many cases of these school threats, not only just here, but nationally across the board. We're talking South Carolina, Montana, Florida, Oklahoma. The list goes on and on. Why do you think that's so? Really sad.
I mean, I think some of this is peer pressure. Some of this maybe is mental health. Some of this is social media. Kids have much different pressures than I had when I was a child, and I didn't have access to this. So I think it is something that more and more professionals that are better suited to talk about how this might be coming up or are diving into this to address how do we stop it? Because I mean, and again, let's be, let's talk about it. Some of this could be even just copycatting, where kids kind of think this is the cool thing to do to push something out on social media, and they might get clicks or likes, and instead, it's this young boy, he might be in detention right now instead.
All right, Hector, we've got another case that we're going to get to in our next half hour. Thank you. Rachel?